Hi. Okay. So, I just restored a photo of Bela Lugosi in one of his stage productions. And I thought, why not do one of those people in history? Because I said that I would do more of those. So we all know Bela Lugosi is famous for Dracula. He brought that character to life. I'm sure that after of course, Nosferatu was like the first film Dracula. But it bombed. I mean, like I said in my critique, it killed the company and put the company out of business. So then you have a few years later, and Lugosi comes into the picture. However, Lugosi was not the first. Oh man. He really had to fight, and they didn't treat him very well. Yeah, Hollywood was terrible to him. But I'm not gonna go through all of his film. I'm actually going to go through his theater, because apparently a lot of people don't know about his life in theater. But yeah, he was not the first choice for Dracula. I believe, let me see. What does it see here? Because he was actually still doing stage productions at the time. Okay, what does it say? Oh, it looks like it doesn't say. When the company opened the right burger to the different prominent actors were considered before casting Lugosi. So it doesn't actually say. There were other actors to consider. One of the big things that they talk about is that his thick accent, because he's from Hungary. So one of the big things that they made a big deal about was his accent. It was like, they were like, oh, well, you know what? We can't work around that. And it's like, yeah, you can. I guess that there's like a movie where there's another actor that's dubbed over. Yeah, it's like, oh my gosh, you couldn't even give him that. So anyway, I'll put that right here instead of over up there. So actually, the one that I just restored, he did a lot of chic, or maybe it's just the one and I see a lot of pictures of it. Tends to happen. There's a play that he did in the 20s that is called Arabesque. It's not it's not ballet. Trust me, it's not. Not by any means. I thought it was. I was like, oh, it's ballet. Arabesque is a ballet step. Anyway, in case you didn't know. You can take the ballerina out of dance, but the ballet, anyway, you know what I'm trying to say. Arabesque is kind of along the same lines as chic from what I'm getting. There are sites, if you look up Bela Lugosi, Arabesque, there are sites that have like historical. I will actually put one that I found that have the newspaper clippings and everything. I will put that in so you can look at them. It has like the cast and it has some of the reviews, so it's actually very informative. And but he started his career as early as, well, it says that he dropped out of school at the age of 12. Oh, goodness. And he began his acting career in 1901 because he was born in 1882. That's one thing to remember. And so he began acting in 1901, 1902. So his earliest known performances are from provincial theaters in 1903 and 1904 season, playing small roles in several plays and operettas. He went on to do Shakespeare plays and other major roles. So the other thing to remember is that he was over in like Budapest and everything, and he was actually doing really well over there. He moved to Budapest in 1911. He played dozens of roles in the National Theatre of Hungary between 1913 and 1919. He claims that he became the leading actor of Hungary's Royal National Theatre, but they were small supporting parts, so he was. But you know, when you're Dracula, we'll give him that. And then when World War I came around, he did fight in World War I. I don't know if anybody knows that. You know, a lot of these people, it's like their time in the war, it's kind of like, oh, okay, didn't know that. You don't really know it until you look it up, you know. And I mean, some of them, like I'm totally gonna blank it. Sir Christopher Lee. I mean, you know it. You know that he was in the war, and a few others, like Clark Gable. We knew he was in the war, and Gene Kelly knew he was in the war. He was in the war, and then he started acting, if I remember right. And but he moved. He fled from his homeland, from Hungary, because of a revolution, and then came over to, he first ended up in Vienna and then Berlin, where he continued to act, and he decided to use the name Lugosi. That's where he came up with it. What was his name before? What was his birth name? Because I didn't even... A very Hungarian name that I'm not even going to pronounce because I know I'll butcher it. So he came up with the name Lugosi in 1903 to honor his birthplace. This is what it's saying. And then he traveled to New Orleans as a crewman aboard a merchant ship. So that's kind of where that came up. And then when he ended up in America, it was like, that's when things, he struggled a lot. He did appear in some Hungarian silent films. He made 12 films in Hungary. And I don't know if he made any German silent films. It doesn't really say. And we do know that he made silent films here because we watched Midnight Girl. I have tried to find some other ones of his. Again, I'm very cheap. I watch him on YouTube. No surprise there. Um, so he ended up in New Orleans, and then he moved up to New York, and then, oh wow, he was 6'1". I didn't realize just how tall he was. I've read up on him before, but you always learn new things. And then as he was in New York, he found some fellow Hungarian actors. I guess it was like a group there. That was never quite clear. And they toured, and they toured and performed for other immigrants, and did quite well. They performed Hungarian plays, and then that's when he ended up in Broadway, in his first Broadway play in 1922 called The Red Poppy. And then between 1925 and 1926, he I love these titles, and I kind of wish they were still around. If they are, I'm very curious. So he showed up in The Devil in the Cheese, not and, in. So The Devil in the Cheese. So then in 1925, Arabesque, he premiered in Buffalo, New York. I'm wondering if that one is still around. Some of these they kind of tuck away and then they bring back. I guess with a funny thing happened on the way to the forum. When Zero Mostel died, they put that one away for a long time and then they brought it back. Because Zero Mostel, he played Pseudolus really well. I mean, that was like his part. Nobody else could play it. I have the movie. And then, okay, so his first silent film role came in 1923. They do this very choppy. They don't do it in order. The Silent Command. It seems like there was someone that I restored and someone else I restored. Well, maybe not. It just sounds. And mostly he did villains. Now, one of the things. So through the 20s, he was in theater. Let's see, does it have. Let's see. It's saying the more popular ones that he was in. He was in a production called Passion's Play, which is, if we know Passions of the Christ, that's basically what it's so similar. I restored a photo of a gentleman, Joseph Mayer. I mean, this play has gone on for centuries. I mean, as far back as the 1600s, probably longer. And if you read up on Passion's Play, and then you remember Passions of the Christ, it's the exact same. I'm not saying that Mel Gibson took from the play or anything, but I wouldn't put it past him. I remember all that outrage and everything, but yeah, Bela Lugosi played Jesus Christ. There are pictures of him as with the thorn crown and everything, and but it was a job. It was what he did, and it's really funny when I tell people that and I show them the pictures, and they're like, the guy who played Dracula also played Jesus. It's like, yeah, he played many parts. Okay, can't do this one-handed and talk at the same time. I can't multitask anymore. I'm getting old. Okay, stage. So the Red Poppy, it seems like that one went on well into the 60s, but I could be wrong about that one. That one was really popular. He was also in a stage production of Arsenic and Old Lace. I did see the pictures for that. Okay. On his official page, and I'll put that on the description, it does talk about some of his stage productions. Some of them, like here it is, Arsenic and Old Lace. In Hungary, it doesn't talk much, but he did, like he was in Romeo and Juliet. And one of the reasons why they decided maybe he would be okay for Dracula, and then kind of decided, well, maybe not. He performed as Dracula on stage. So there was a stage production of Dracula, and he was Dracula. So on stage and on the big screen. So but they say here that it was in the 40s, but it seems like I read somewhere that before he received the role in the 30s, he did like one production. So I could be wrong. I'm waiting for, yep, right there, 1927, and that was in the UK. Well, this has them grouped together. Well, wait a minute. Before I get ahead of myself, because to do that. In New York, and then in California, and again in California, and again in California. So, and then in Oregon. Wow, he was all the way up here. That's kind of cool. And he... So that's he in Arsenic and Old Lace, he played Jonathan Brewster. If you're familiar with the play, I highly recommend you watch that. If you watch Cary Grant, the Cary Grant movie, yeah, it's hilarious. I watched the TV movie with Boris Karloff. It was okay. It didn't have the flair. I mean, when you're used to the Cary Grant version, the two old ladies that are in the movie, I like them. So, but anyway, so there's everybody. Oh, he was also in Werewolf. So yeah, he did a lot of horror in stage. So he had quite a reputation on stage back in his homeland, and as well as, so he started pretty young. But it's just, it's funny to me that people don't know about his, they just know that he was Dracula, which there's nothing wrong with that, trust me. When it comes to people who play that part, there's him and Sir Christopher Lee is a very close second. I mean, they're like equal. Oh my goodness. But yeah, so he was a stage actor. He just, Hollywood just did not treat him very well. I probably went on a rant about that. I don't remember, but anyway, and it all boiled down to he was from another country. He had that thick Hungarian accent, but you know what? Props to his son for fighting for his legacy. That's fantastic. And you can read up on that. I'm not gonna go into that. So anyway, yeah, he had, I mean, he, years of film before, I mean, years of stage acting, and then he went into film, and I just think it's hilarious that they were like, I don't think we should really use him. I think there's somebody else. And it's like, he played Dracula on stage and you're not going to use him? What is the matter with you? So anyway, I will put the link to Arabesque on in the description, as well as his official page, so that you can look up all this stuff, like his I don't know what you would call it, stageography. I don't know. But anyway, so you can look all that up and see all, because he was still acting on stage while he was performing on film. So, but anyway, yeah, that is his, that's Bela Lugosi during his stage career.